So beginning with a couple of announcements, we had a lovely tea on, I guess it was on Sunday, and people made cards with slogans on them. So if you weren't at the tea and you're so inspired, it seems like a really lovely thing to do, to take a slogan or slogans and write it down and color around it or something. Vivifies it. So, Thursday, it is Tuesday. I'm tracking myself to kind of space, maybe you are too. Since the election, I sort of don't quite know where I am in time. This Thursday is Thanksgiving. Please have a lovely Thanksgiving. Gratitude is the heart of it all, generosity. And then the week after that, Gretchen and I will both be here on Tuesday and Thursday and co-leading, co-holding the space to finish with the slogans. And then that weekend is the Buddha's Awakening retreat, which please, Rachel gave a wonderful request at the tea of just how much it helps if you can let us know. Let the registrar know when you're coming, what periods of time, come for the whole thing, please. We don't do longer 2-day retreats. This is it. Please come if you can, but if you can't, what parts of it can you come for? And for sure, if you're in the practice period, please make every attempt 2:30 on Sunday. That's a week from this Sunday on the 8th. Is the, believe it or not, the closing of the practice period and the Hosen Shiki ceremony, which I know Gretchen is really looking forward to. It kind of puts the Shuso a little bit on the hot seat. And I think one of the most profound teachings in this is how much we're all holding each other, no matter what seat we're in. We're not alone. So, and then I said, I had a nice conversation with the Enos today. After that, to finish out December, we're going to do a little thing about Zen forms. You know, and even thought we might even have some fun with it, like a panel where you could, it's like, what's the thing about Zen you always wanted to know? And nobody's gonna know the answer, but anyway, we can, and maybe do some of the forms together as a way to understand that the forms help us create community, embodied community. But that will all be in the newsletter. It's gonna come out in the next few days. So I want to spend a little bit of time tonight, and then we'll do it again, Gretchen and I next week, talking about the final slogans. Norman Fisher and Pema Chodron approached them a little differently, and I kind of had fun going. They organized them a little differently, and I had fun tracking both of them. I want to bring a little bit of that here. But I'm going to start with, because I think it was last Thursday that we did this. And it's such an important part of what makes Zen Zen. This entire text of mind training is for the purpose of reducing self-centeredness and generating compassion. Yet in Zen, it said there is no such thing as compassion because reality is already compassionate by its very nature. Just the truth, just interconnectedness, interbe, a million different ways to say it. Everything is love. Everything is one bright pearl, is Buddha nature. We're just a little confused because we perceive separation, and then we have to train ourselves to remember, to keep coming back. But Zen just won't let you rest. You know, it's very frustrating, but it's also very, I don't know, I mean, I ended up here, you're here. There's something about it that feels trustworthy to me, is that the minute you think you got it, it just pulls the rug out from underneath you and says, well, so now where are you? And what's true and what's the ground you're standing on in this moment? So if you walk around thinking that you're compassionate all the time and the world is compassionate and that's really lovely, but I bet you're gonna encounter some stuff that's gonna make you wonder, whose idea was that? And then you might get cynical or disillusioned or whatever, but Zen is like, why prattle on about compassion? Nor is there any such thing as meditation, since consciousness is essentially meditation already. Everything is Zazen. Zazen is just an enactment of our true nature and of everything and as Buddha. The teaching is you don't sit down to become a Buddha, you sit down because it's an actualization and an embodiment of who you already are. And then we're waking up into it. The big joke in Zen is whatever you privilege, whatever you define and adhere to is always wrong and will, because wrong, always lead to a problem and a danger. The minute you name something, you've already missed it. It's like you can't win, folks. It's like there's Gretchen's abandoned hope. Whether it is meditation or compassion or goodness or truth or enlightenment, whatever noble thing you want to know, experience, or aspire to, as soon as you privilege something and make a big deal out of it, there is always trouble. Whatever we designate as this or that is just that, a designation. It's a really profound teaching. No more and no less, and we should recognize this and not get so excited about it, which of course we do. That's why Zen is so insistent on the big joke. The spirit of Zen training is no sticking to anything. Like it's great when we do this thing about Zen forms, is everybody's gonna wanna know, what's this mean? You know, and it's like, I don't know, nobody ever told me. We just do it. But then you could probably find out some reason, but the minute you thought you had a reason, then you start doing it and you might get a little pompous or something, and then it's, anyway, I like this. So as we said in the beginning, we may need the slogans to help us lighten up. And, but always keep their nakedness in mind. And then, Pema Chodron calls this next section, Norman calls it living with ease in a crazy world. Pema Chodron divides it into two parts. One is communicating from the heart, that all activities are done with one intention, to awaken the heart. Norman's language would be compassion. And the other part is she talks about the big squeeze, and I really kind of like that language, so I want to bring that forward. Big squeeze. So if she has already said communicating from the heart is why we're doing this, that's her language. If we want to communicate and we have a strong aspiration to help others, which is what bodhisattvas do, on the level of social action, on the level of our family, at work, in our community, or we just want to be there for people when they need us, then sooner or later, we're going to experience the big squeeze. Sooner or later, the world is going to pull the rug out from underneath all of our great intentions. Our ideals and the reality of what's really happening don't match. We feel as if we're between the fingers of a big giant who is squeezing us. We find ourselves between a rock and a hard place. I might even say we might feel that way culturally right now in our society. Good news is being caught in the big squeeze humbles you. And at the same time, it has great vision. This is the interesting part. The big squeeze softens you, and yet it has a big perspective. Through meditation practice, we learn not to reject, but also not to grasp. This is the same paradox that we are presented with in our lives. It's not so much that you don't or do reject, it's more that sometimes you find you can't do either and that you do both at the same time. I wonder why life feels a little confusing and crazy, and we want to find some ease in the middle of it. Life is glorious, but it's also wretched. It is both. Appreciating the gloriousness inspires us, encourages us, cheers us up, gives us a bigger perspective, energizes us, and we feel connected. Wow, this is great to be alive and to be a human being. But if that's all that's happening, we get a little arrogant. We start to look down on others. We get a little self-satisfied. We get a little complacent. And there is a sense of making ourselves a big deal and being really serious about it, wanting it to be like that forever. You ever have moments of that? Wow, this is really good. I got it. On the other hand, wretchedness, which we really don't like and we don't want, life's painful aspect softens us up considerably. Knowing pain is an important ingredient of being there for another person. When you are feeling a lot of grief, you can look right into somebody's eyes because you feel you haven't got anything to lose. You're just there. Grief will keep you there like nothing else. The wretchedness humbles us and softens us, but if we were only wretched, we would just all go down the tubes. We'd be so depressed, discouraged, and hopeless that we wouldn't have enough energy to eat an apple. Gloriousness and wretchedness need each other. One inspires us, the other softens us, and they go together. Let's remember that. That's really important. So, couple of slogans. One I particularly always like, maybe I've already confessed this. Maybe it's because it's my own nature, but I don't think so. Always meditate on what provokes resentment. The resentment has a certain kind of smell, a certain kind of body, mind. I don't know, maybe if you just take a moment, it's like, what's resentment feel like in your body? You all know it. I mean, if you don't know it, you should investigate it. And the minute it appears, it's like, oh, thank you, Buddha. Ooh, boy, does that set a whole thing going. Pema says, instead of the resentment being an obstacle, it's a reminder. Feeling irritated, restless, afraid, and hopeless, and I would say pissed. I don't know what it feels like in your body, is a reminder to listen more carefully. It's a reminder to stop talking, to watch and listen. Thank you, Buddha. Resentment. Study it. I mean, really. Study it. Next one is, another part of the big squeeze is, whichever of the two occurs, whether it's wretchedness or gloriousness, just be patient, it'll change into something else. Just patience. Patience is, to me, one of the most profound and one of the hardest things for a human being, in my experience. You just want to know what's going on. And we just want to arrive at some conclusion. Whether it is glorious or wretched, delightful or hateful, be patient. Patience means allowing things to unfold at their own speed rather than jumping in with your habitual response to either pleasure or pain. I would say it's one of the kind of torturous things of what's unfolding, just to do a little political commentary, is we just want to know what's going to happen. And it's unfolding in a way that can feel pretty painful. Who's going to get hurt? What's going to happen? Is this whole thing going to fall apart? I mean, whatever your story or your concern is, you can't push at it. Very humbling, and it's really big time practice. So most of you probably know this story, but it's such a great story. I'm going to read it to you. Norman Fisher. You know the story, is that so? Anybody know this song? It doesn't matter. You can hear it again. It's such a great story. Once upon a time, there was a kindly Zen priest living in a temple at the top of a mountain. One day there was a furious knock at the gate. A man and a woman are holding an infant, screaming at this priest as soon as he opens the gate. A priest, indeed, you are a disgrace to the Buddha way. Our young daughter tells us this baby is yours. Take it. Now, can you just imagine, this is a story out there, but can you imagine if somebody came to your door and told you that you had, I mean, whatever they were accused of? We've all had tastes of this. I don't behave very well. I don't like it when my husband tells me these things. No. The priest says, go away, stop it. No. The priest says, oh, is that so? Is that so? And just receives the child. The irate parents leave and time goes by. The girl finally confesses to her parents that her pregnancy had nothing to do with the priest. The father of the child is a young man from an important family, and not wanting to dishonor him or his family, she had blurted out that the priest was to blame, and now she was deeply regretful of this. The chagrined parents rush up to the temple and bow, bringing their heads to the floor. We're so sorry. We can't believe we said those things. Please forgive us. And the priest says, is that so? Is that so? Is that so? And returns the child. Is that so? Wow. That's an amazing teaching story. Okay. So then we go on to the slogan that Pema Chodron says is her most favorite, which is train in the 3 difficulties. Want to know what they are? You have to really want to know. Okay, training in the 3 difficulties. Under the big squeeze. It's my favorite slogan, she says, because it acknowledges that this path is difficult, all right, but it's a good way to spend our time. There are 3 difficulties. The first is, her language is seeing neurosis as neurosis. You know right? No, probably. I'm sorry. I'll tell you a little bit more in a minute. The second is being willing to do something different. And the third difficulty is the aspiration to make this a way of life. But she explains it this way.
Chris, what was the first one again?
Seeing neurosis as neurosis. The first difficulty is to see what you do. It's like you're a human being. This is not a problem. You are not like the worst person in the whole world, and this is not like a problem. It's like we all got it. And I kind of like that she calls it neurosis. Be able to see what we do without hating ourselves. This can also be described as loving kindness. We could see what we do with honesty, but with gentleness. We could see what we do and realize that that's our first experience of the big squeeze. And then she says it's the path of the warrior, seeing what we do without turning it against ourselves. In Shambhala tradition, they in Tibetan, there's a called path of the spiritual warrior. I've never quite liked that language, but it also gives it's like you have to you have to take this, this is like courageous practice. To be able to stay lovingly with your own neurosis, with your own confusion, with your own karma, with your own greed and hate and believing. And it's a profound bodhisattva act. And then once you acknowledge it or see it, to do something different. It's like, aha, there it is, caught it. Even if you see what you do, can you then do something different? And I've always stayed with me a long time. Do something different. Anything different would help. Anything that's not habitual. I think, oh, you could go stand on your head, or you could, she says, for example, you could go up and take a cold shower and sing at the top of your lungs, or drink a glass of water from the wrong side, like you do when you are trying to get rid of hiccups. I mean, it's like just do something. I mean, you can have a sense of humor about this. Like I'm about to do the same. I mean, my poor husband, I love him very, very much, but you know, it's like that's what we do. It's like, how could I do something different in the moment where I've done the same thing 100,000,000 times? And I know he practices the same way with me. Yeah, you could just go la 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 la. Pat yourself on the head. Anyway, I think you get it. Okay, the third one is continuing that way. But even if you see what you do, and even if you do something different, the third difficulty is that it's difficult to continue that way, to cut the habitual pattern as a way of life. So whenever you see yourself spinning off in some kind of habitual way, you could practice this at Thanksgiving. Knowledge you might have lots of opportunity, whether you're with your whole family or by yourself or whatever. This is just wonderful. Okay.
Chris, can you say the third one again?
Is the third one, the language is continuing to practice, continuing to do something different, to catch yourself and to do something different each time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. To catch yourself and do something different as a way of cultivating compassion for yourself and compassion for others. But don't be surprised or give up when it's difficult. That's the loving kindness part of it. It's like I am so humbled. I am so humbled by how long I've been practicing and how deep my intention is and how neurotic and how much I still can do the same old stuff, you know? It's like, but I'm kinder, there's more awareness, so I catch it fast sometimes. But it's also funnier and it's sadder. Like this is practice. And there's a lot of kindness in it. And of course, then there's more capacity to be kind with others, including those other people who you think are so stupid. No. That doesn't include you, of course. Let's see, Norman Fisher, let's see, what should we do here? Let me just, I'm curious how he says it, sorry. Recognize that the mind is extremely difficult to train, and that mostly the training will proceed from failure to failure. This is kind. This is so kind. It's so forgiving. But this is normal. That's how it works. So noticing that you are in a mess and being able to simply stop right there without the frustration and recrimination taking over, and take a breath, and then with that breath returning to positive intentions and be willing to do this time and time again as normal life. That's essential practice. This is it. This is not some special highfalutin practice. This is called becoming a true human being. Let me just. And the more you do it. The slogan is keep the three inseparable. The more you do it, the more you want to be with people, the more you kind of like yourself. The more you're willing to risk being in community, to risk making mistakes. It's like it's self-reinforcing. You want to come forward more and more. And you watch yourself go away, crash out in the same old ways, but then it's like, no, this is good. This is my life. This is my practice. Praying without bias. Again, begin to see what you do. This time you don't necessarily try to change it. You just see it. Instead of doing something different, you can stay with it in a different kind of way. To be with the tension of it a little bit differently. There's more stability, just. And the last two that I'm going to bring up today is Norman calls it, don't be swayed by circumstances. It really is the essence of Zazen. It's the essence of meditation practice. Is Buddha sat down on the earth, just here, just this, along with all beings. And Mara comes and and tries to push you around, and all your particular wonderful Maras will come, and the rainstorms will come, and the earthquakes will come, and politics will come, and there's just we're deepening the capacity to just be and walk with what is. And I'm going to tell you a story in a minute, which is the whole purpose of this, because I remember this story and I really want to tell this story. Okay, don't be swayed by circumstances. As we have already noted, it's always something. If things go well, be patient. They will change. If things go poorly, be patient. They will change. What goes up will come down. What is low will be high later on. There is no end to the vicissitudes of life. It's no good if we are blown back and forth by circumstances to the point of instability, so that we lose track of ourselves to the west when the wind blows us that way, and then to the east when it reverses course. And then he says, but I don't completely agree with this slogan. I think it's good to be swayed by circumstances, which is to be acted upon, like to. I was at there's different kinds of meditation in Buddhist traditions, and I was at, I'm not making fun of this, it's just so different, is that there were some very senior, very experienced, really beautiful monks at an ordination at Spirit Rock many years ago. I got invited to, and with Zen, the practice is to be present. I mean, to be awake and to be swayed by circumstance. I mean, you want to be able to feel and experience. What, although this is going to fit my story in a minute, is that they went into deep samadhi and like had to be roused from the deep samadhi to be able to be present for the next step of the ordination, which is jhanic states. I mean, and it's really beautiful to practice really deep jhanic states, and that's part of the tradition. But in Zen, I mean, it's why you sit longer retreats. Is there is something that happens, but it's never to go away from what's happening. Always to be here and to be able to be acted upon. I think it's good to be swayed by circumstances. Like a bamboo that is flexible enough to sway in the wind. Swaying is one thing, being uprooted another. Can we be swayed without losing our place? Swayed but with solid roots. Firm yet flexible. Maybe that's a better slogan. Firm yet flexible. So I'm going to tell you a story, and then I want you to just turn to somebody, because maybe it'll bring up a little story for you, is, Bruce, my husband and I were traveling in Sri Lanka. And there's beautiful rock paintings way up high in Sri Lanka. I mean, it's kind of a tourist attraction, but it's very sacred space. So we went there, and when we got there, there were, there was a big sign that said there were like killer hornets. And that you could rent these outfits that you could put on that would protect you if the killer hornets swarmed. And you know, it was really hot out, and they were long sleeves and hats, and you know, we just went, yeah. I mean, some people bought them and they were lumbering up this mountain in the heat and sweating, and we weren't gonna be that stupid. I'm making fun of my neurosis. So we get up and we're looking at all these really beautiful ancient paintings. And all of a sudden, it's very clear that the killer hornet bees are indeed swarming. And that the people who were smart enough to put on the outfits weren't panicking like all the rest of us were. And they started herding us up into cages up at the top of the mountain and shutting people into the cages to protect you, because these, I mean, we read later that people were hospitalized, and I mean, this was serious stuff. So part of it's my neurosis that I'm kind of like a little claustrophobic, is I am not interested in being put in a cage with a bunch of bees coming at me and a bunch of panicked people around me. And I saw a monk who was just walking calmly through the whole thing. And I thought, I'm just gonna follow that. This is a true story. I mean, I'm telling you, because I said, I can't believe I did it, because the hornets were all over the place, and this guy's just walking through it. I got behind, I said to Bruce, come on, you know, and we just followed him down the mountain. And there was a way that he was in the midst of the circumstances that the hornets left us completely alone. And I would watch my state of mind and my body. And I knew that the minute I started to go into an anxiety or fear, that I was susceptible to whatever could come at us. And I just stayed so focused on him because he was so focused. And we made it down. I think there really is something to this meditation. There really is something, I mean, that each one of us is. So I thought, you know, maybe you've had maybe not a story like that, but just some moment where things are starting to knock you around, and something in you just says, take a breath. Maybe you could try this instead of that. So Norman's firm yet flexible. Let's talk about that. Firm yet flexible. What is it? How do you know that in your life? Okay. Or anything else in any of this that you want to? And we'll have, 12 minutes or something like that. Yeah, talk to somebody you don't know, go across the aisle, it's always good. They're really out, I mean, it's all across the aisle.
I never talked to this person over here. I never talked to you. Crossing the aisle.
I was here. That's okay. I talked to you, but I don't talk to you.
I know.
So we'll come down.
Coming down. Okay, let's
I
see.
guess you're on the chairs, but I don't know.
Yeah, you're in a
Nice seeing you.